All right, so we're back for the fourth week of Work on Climate's Ask Me Anything for the Learn Workplace Climate Action channel. I am super excited to be talking to Mia Ketterling today from Pinterest. She leads Pinterest sustainability work, and she is just honestly an awesome person. So, Mia, I'm going to turn it over to you to do a little intro of yourself.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Mia Ketterling. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the senior sustainability lead at Pinterest. If you're not familiar, Pinterest is a visual search engine and discovery platform where over 550 million people come every month to get inspiration for what to eat, what to wear, and how to decorate their homes. I moved from Pinterest product design team to lead Pinterest sustainability work in 2021. It was Pinterest's first sustainability role, and I've really been building the program from the ground up since then. In my day-to-day work, I oversee our sustainability program, including our greenhouse gas inventory, target setting, renewable energy strategy, supplier engagement program, and working across the business to achieve our goals.
Awesome. So I think you're the perfect person to talk to when we're talking about reducing emissions within an organization or within a business, because I love that you transitioned from a non-sustainability role to a sustainability role. So I can only imagine that you've learned a lot in those years during that transition. So the first question I have for you is really simple. How do businesses achieve emissions reductions?
Yes. I did indeed learn so much over the past few years and really have been kind of building upon the knowledge and information for sustainability leaders who have walked before me and been so generous in sharing their playbooks and how to get started with these types of programs. So the first step to achieve emissions reductions is to really understand where your emissions are first coming from. To do this, you'll need to do a comprehensive greenhouse gas inventory. And that is looking at your full value chain and identifying where your emissions are coming from. There are three scopes of emissions. Scope one emissions are direct emissions from your operations, like fuel or gas that's burned in your facilities for heating or fuel used for your company-owned vehicles. Scope two emissions are from purchased energy, like electricity for your offices. And scope three emissions are really everything else. So all of the emissions from your upstream and downstream value chain, including purchased goods and services, business travel, waste, and emissions from the use of your product. So for us, once I was armed with this data, it was really apparent for us to identify where the hotspots were and understand where you need to build partnerships to explore what sort of emissions reduction programs are possible for you. For lots of companies, a big portion of their emissions come from their supply chain. So, a key relationship is to build a strong partnership with your procurement or supply chain team. A few ways that Pinterest is working to reduce emissions from our supply chain is we've added questions to our RFP template. So when we're going out in the market and looking for new vendors to work with, we're really identifying those that have strong sustainability programs that are measuring and have programs to reduce their emissions, which will then reduce Pinterest emissions. We also have a program where, for the vendors that we're already working with, we identify ones that are potentially earlier in their sustainability journey. They haven't disclosed their greenhouse gas inventory yet. We can't find any information about them setting emissions reduction targets. And we reach out to them and provide them with resources, consulting services to help them kind of get started in that journey. So those are a couple ways that Pinterest is working to reduce our scope three emissions.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for giving those examples. I think it's really helpful to hear because, um, as you might have said, scope three emissions are often the biggest bucket of emissions, probably for the majority of companies. And unfortunately, they are the hardest emissions to deal with. So it's super helpful to hear kind of like specific ways is tackling them. Um, Curious about what are some constraints or barriers that might prevent companies from progressing on reducing emissions. And kind of a follow-up to that, how my employees who aren't on sustainability teams be more aware of what the company is doing and what constraints the company might be facing.
Yeah, definitely. So one kind of common pain point is receiving accurate data and information. So, as I mentioned, a large portion of our emissions come from our supply chain, and gathering that accurate data can be very complicated, especially if you have a complex supply chain. So, in order to kind of make sure that you're working on projects that are going to drive meaningful progress towards your goals, you really need to make sure that you're obtaining accurate data and it's really reflecting the work that your suppliers are doing to reduce their emissions. So that can be a big challenge. Growing companies can also be challenged in reducing their emissions as they're growing as a business. They're adding more headcount, they're generating more revenue, they're making more products. And so, kind of finding ways to decouple emissions growth from business growth is a really complex challenge. But in my experience, once teams are aware of how kind of aligning their work with sustainability can also reduce costs and kind of increase margins for the business, they're more likely to get on board.
So I'd love to double click a little bit more into the employee piece. As you mentioned, sustainability teams are tasked with transforming their entire organizations. And I believe your team might only be you. Is that correct?
I do have one other sustainability analyst
Okay.
working with me this year, so lucky to have doubled our team. So
Awesome. I love that you doubled your team. But yeah, two people tasked with, yeah, in charge of all of Pinterest sustainability is truly monumental. And I commend both of you for working on it. So just kind of understanding that, would love to just learn a little bit more about what you think the overall role of employees is in helping companies reduce their emissions. Just any other thoughts you have generally about why employees are important for reducing emissions within an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story is a little bit unique in that I guess I was an employee before I was working on sustainability. And I just started asking questions and figuring out what the company was doing already and how we could better communicate to our employees about the hard work that the teams were doing that they weren't necessarily getting credit for. And I think employees play such a vital role in helping companies reduce emissions. So if you're building a product, there's so many different design decisions that you can make to use less materials, energy, or resources. As I mentioned, if you're responsible for sourcing and onboarding new vendors, you can really ensure that your process is aligned with your sustainability work and that you're actively seeking out new vendors that are aligned with your goals. If you're in sales, plays such an important role to be kind of the voice of your customer or our clients, to do research and flag kind of where customer needs are shifting to up to leadership so that there's awareness that this is something that's important to your customers. If you're in benefits or in HR, you can source perks for employees like discounts on home solar or commuting benefits. There's really just no shortage of opportunities. And I truly think that some of the most impactful projects that have really driven emissions reductions have come from people outside of the sustainability team that are really close to the work that they're driving. So the engineering team has worked on some really innovative projects that drive tons of efficiency and reducing costs while also reducing carbon emissions. And that work all came out of the engineering team, not from the sustainability team. So there's really no shortage of opportunities. And I think that people can really have a huge impact no matter where they sit within the organization.
Yeah, I love that. And very aligned with what we usually say around every job needs to be a climate job and can be a climate job. Also glad that you brought up customers, like what are people seeing from their customers or users or clients? often they do care about sustainability, and we're going to be talking to your colleague Kevin in just a couple weeks about that. So really excited to have him on board too, and glad Pinterest is like doing such awesome work in the sustainability world. But that's all I have for you, Mia. Thank you so much for being here today, and we're really excited to have you in the channel answering people's questions.
Yes, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing what's top of mind for everyone.